Today on Fantasy Food Show, I'm making two-toned Batman pasta. Let me show you how it's done. For the pasta dough, you'll just need flour and eggs. I'm using 00 flour, which is what the Italians use, but feel free to substitute all-purpose. That'll work just fine. To color the pasta, for the yellow dough, I'm using turmeric and yellow pepper. And for the black dough, some activated charcoal, which I found on Amazon, but you could probably find it in health food stores as well. I got the idea for colored pasta from Salty Seattle, so I'll leave a link to her channel below, and make sure you check her out. Finally, you'll need a Batman cookie cutter. This is a 2-inch version, and I got this on eBay, and I'll leave a link to that below. There's a seller there who makes them on their 3D printer. It's pretty cool. For the yellow dough, crack 2 eggs into a blender or food processor, and add in about a half a cup of chopped pepper. Add a little turmeric, about a teaspoon or so, and blend it all together until it's nice and smooth. Pour the mixture into a bowl, and then add about a cup of flour to start. Mix it together, and then add more flour until it comes together as a dough. I like this dough to be on the firmer side. It really does help keep the Batman shape intact as it's being rolled out. For the black dough, no need for a blender. Just add your eggs, about a teaspoon or 2 of activated charcoal, and whisk it together. And watch out because it's quite dusty. Mix in the flour, and you'll have your dough. Make sure to knead both doughs for a good 5 to 10 minutes to get all of the flour incorporated and to get the dough nice and smooth. All right, we've got our pasta dough ready, and now I have to roll it out. So I've got my pasta machine here, and I've set the rollers to the widest setting, which is 0, and I'm gonna pass my pasta dough through the machine. And I just wanna make sure that it's well floured so that it doesn't stick. Okay. And here we go. Okay, and I like to push the pasta dough rather than pull it because that can stretch it out. Okay, so now I've got my pasta dough. I'm gonna fold it onto itself, flour it again, and then pass it through again at 0. And this is called laminating the dough. And the reason that I'm doing that is because it builds up strength in your pasta dough. So here we go. And I'm gonna laminate this about, 5 or 6 times, just until it gets nice and smooth. And once I've done that, it will look something like that. See, it's nice and smooth. All right, so I'm gonna just take this and pass it through one more time, actually. Okay, move this over here. So now I'm going to move the setting on the rollers to 1, which is the next thinnest setting. And I'm going to pass my dough through again. Again, pushing, not pulling. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I get to about a 5. If your dough gets too long that it's hard to manage on your own, you can always just cut it in half with a sharp knife, and then that should be a little easier. So once I've done that to a setting of 5, I'll do that with my yellow dough, and then I'll show you how to cut up the shapes. Once both doughs are rolled out, take your cookie cutter and cut out your Batman shapes out of the yellow dough. Once you've cut out all of your Batmans, brush a little water onto the dough around all of the cutouts. This is going to help the 2 doughs stick together. And then place the black dough on top of the yellow. The reason I'm not lifting the yellow dough is that with all of the cutouts, that dough is now weaker, and you run the risk of distorting your shapes too much. So always lift the solid dough. Lightly press the 2 colors together, and then use a rolling pin to make sure they adhere to one another. Set your pasta machine on 1 or 2, and give the dough an initial pass through to bond the 2 colors fully together. I wouldn't set the machine too thin just yet, or you'll just squash all of your Batmans out of shape. You'll still get a little distortion, but I found that doing it this way keeps the shape as intact as possible. We're making fazzoletti today, which means handkerchief in Italian. So roughly cut each Batman shape out in a large square. They don't have to be perfect yet, we still have more rolling to do. If your pasta isn't sticking around the edges of the cutout, just add a little more water underneath. Then move the rollers to the next thinnest setting and roll each fazzoletti through again in the same direction, either head first or wing first. Then keep rolling them through, each time moving the knob to a higher number and switching the direction of the shape. We're trying to keep the length and the width rolling out as equally as possible. I rolled mine out until they were a thickness of 6, and then I trimmed up the edges with a sharp knife. And if you want to get really fancy, you can use a pasta roller or a fluted dough cutter. At this point, you can let the pasta dry on a rack, put it in the freezer for later, or drop it into a pot of salted, boiling water for a few minutes. Fresh pasta doesn't take as long as dried pasta, so keep an eye on it. I think these took around 5 to 7 minutes. While that's boiling, you'll probably have a lot of scraps left over, but don't throw those out. Knead them together and then roll them out again at a 0, and then continuing up until you get to a thinness of 6. You get a really cool marble effect with this, and then you can use your cookie cutter to cut out little Batmans that you can then use like farfalle or orecchiette or any other small pasta. Once the pasta is cooked to your liking, finish it off with your favorite sauce. I just made a simple brown butter with sage, and then you can serve it up. And there it is, my two-toned Batman pasta. All right, pasta's ready. Time to eat. Gonna grate some Parmesan cheese over it. Parmigiano Reggiano. And here we go. It's really good. I'm just gonna keep eating this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.